Okay, so have you ever, like, imagined yourself traveling to some totally foreign country, but with, like, no hotels or restaurants and forget Google Maps, how would you even, like, get around, let alone, not starve?
Wow, yeah, that's it really makes you think, doesn't it? Especially when, you think about how people in the past dealt with that, like way back.
And that's what we are going to be kind of looking into today. This whole idea of Xenia that the ancient Greeks had. And we've got this poem, Beggars from Zeus, to kind of guide us.
It's a really interesting poem.
It's not like super long, but it's packed with stuff. And it gets you thinking about like hospitality, but not just like, oh, be polite, but like survival level.
Yeah, definitely. Like way back then, hospitality wasn't just about manners, right? It was like a huge deal. This whole concept of xenia, sometimes they call it guest friendship. It was like a core part of their society. And it went way deeper than just being nice.
So like if you were rude to a guest, it wasn't just bad manners. It was like you were breaking some kind of like cosmic rule.
Yeah, pretty much. Like they literally thought Zeus was keeping an eye on things, making sure everyone followed the rules of hospitality. The poem even says, all strangers are beggars, protected by Zeus, who watches with care.
Whoa, that's intense.
It is, and it shows just how seriously they took this whole thing. Like, to them, messing with a stranger was like messing with Zeus himself. It all ties into this idea of, like, divine law and order. They called it Themis.
Themis. So like not just good manners, but like the fabric of the universe or something.
Exactly. So it wasn't just about being nice. It was about maintaining this whole cosmic order.
Okay, wow. So it wasn't just about the host being hospitable. There were rules for the guests too, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was a two-way street, like a contract. The guests were supposed to be respectful, not like overstay their welcome or take advantage. It was all about balance.
So like kind of like couch surfing today, where you're relying on strangers' kindness, but you got to be a good guest too. And actually that reminds me, the poem uses some pretty cool examples from Homer, right? Like
Yeah.
think about Odysseus and his whole journey. He depended on people's hospitality constantly.
Yeah, Odysseus is a classic example, and his story really shows how Xenia could be like a lifesaver, but also how things could go bad when the rules were broken, like with those suitors who took over his house,
Yeah.
you know? Total disrespect to him and to the whole idea of Xenia.
Yeah, they got what was coming to them. But do you think like those stories were meant to scare people, to make them be more hospitable? Or was it more like showing the natural consequences?
That's a good question. I think it's probably more about illustrating the natural order of things. Like these stories weren't just for fun, they were meant to teach people about what happens when you honor Xenia or when you don't.
Right, right. And then there's that like crazy scene from the Iliad, you know, where Diomedes and Glaucus meet on the battlefield. I mean, talk about a tense moment.
Yeah, and what's so wild is they find out they're actually connected, like through family. And it's all because of like a chain of past Xenia bonds. So instead of trying to kill each other, they just lay down their weapons.
Wow, so Xenia could even like stop wars.
Exactly. But even in everyday situations, it was about building relationships, building connections. And one way they did that was, of course, through gifts.
Right. The poem even talks about, it calls gifts tokens of remembrance. It's
Pretty
pretty
cool,
provocative.
right? It is. It shows how important those gifts were. It wasn't about like how much they cost. It was the meaning behind them. It was about like sealing the bond between the host and the guest, making it more than just a one-time thing.
So kind of like a promise to keep the relationship going.
Exactly. The gifts were like a physical reminder of that connection.
It really makes you think. Because even today, we rely on all these like systems of trust and reciprocity. It's like a modern version of Xenia, right?
Yeah, you could say that. Like when you use Airbnb, you're trusting someone you've never met to provide you with a place to stay. And they're trusting you to be a respectful guest. It's definitely got some parallels.
So do you think Xenia has like evolved? Is it still relevant in today's world?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, in a world that's so focused on me, myself, and I, the whole idea of Xenia might seem kind of old-fashioned, but maybe that's why we need it now more than ever.
Maybe we do. I mean, Xenia reminds us that being hospitable, it's not just like a rule. It's about recognizing that we're all connected. It's about being kind to each other, building those connections that make our lives and our communities better.
Absolutely. It's about remembering that shared humanity. Maybe instead of asking if there's space for Xenia today, the real question is how can we bring it back? How can we like revive that spirit of hospitality and connection?
Yeah. That's a great question. Something for us all to think about.
It is, isn't it?